Yeah, it's Brittlesby. Get the guys on the phone for me.
Please hold.
You know what, you ladies might want to take off. I might use some, choice language. I got fired.
What?
I got fired.
Season 2 of Mythic Quest premieres next week, so I decided to go back and do a complete recap of Season 1. Mythic Quest is a workplace comedy in the same style as shows like Brooklyn Nine-Nine or Silicon Valley. Created by Always Sunny's Rob McElhenney and Megan Gantz, who wrote for Community and Modern Family, it first premiered on Apple TV in February of last year. This show follows the development team behind one of the world's biggest MMORPGs, Mythic Quest. It gives us a comedic look at what goes into developing a game. The first season is about the game's first big expansion, Raven's Banquet. Ian Grimm is the creative director and is played by Rob McElhenney himself. This game is his vision, and it's up to Poppy Lee and her team of engineers to make sure it comes to fruition. They do a great job in the first episode of introducing each character and their specific roles. It opens up with a commercial for the game narrated by the team's head writer, C.W. Longbottom, a Nebula Award winner. This commercial is supposed to be about the game, but other than a slight introduction to the main cast, it's all about Ian. This really showcases the character's most defining feature, his massive ego. From this, we learn the expansion is ready to launch, but Ian isn't quite satisfied with Poppy's personal addition to the game, the shovel, which brings a whole new building mechanic into the game.
Dig. Do you have any idea what the TTP on an item like this is going to be?
Yeah, it's gonna be
TTP, guys, is time to penis. It's the time it takes for a player to use a new item to make a penis.
Ian decides to take the shovel into the mocap room to noodle on it. Something that we learn Ian does quite often when he has something to ponder about. After some time with the item, he decides to make it a weapon as well. After the shovel with an added limiter disabling the ability to draw penises, or is it peni? Penises? The shovel gets leaked and it gets a pretty poor response from the game's leading streamer, PootyShoe. This news obviously upsets Poppy. This is her personal touch to the game that she helped develop. After Brad from Monetization offers his help, Ian and the rest of the gang are able to come up with a pretty stellar solution. They all are summoned by the HR lady to a meeting, which turns into a sort of brainstorm sesh, and they end up going with a loot crate mechanic. Most gamers are familiar with loot crates by now. This one involves a wood nymph's boobies. This was Brad's idea all along. We find out throughout the season that this guy is an evil genius. He usually has a hand in most of the workplace's drama. Before the game launches, Ian tries to convince everyone that it needs a delay, which puts the executive producer, Brittlesby, in a situation where he has to choose between colleagues. He ends up going with Poppy in the initial release date. This scene really shows Ian's commitment to the game, and it's something that we see pretty often in this show. This is his dream coming to life. He wants to make sure the players love everything about it. Poppy finds him in the studio late at night working on the shovel animations, and after some late night tweaking, they are able to perfect it. The following morning, the entire team is gathered around to watch PootyShoe's initial review of the expansion, which receives a record 4 buttholes. In the second episode, we learn about an NPC, the Masked Man, with a hidden identity. After years of teasing an eventual release of the character's backstory, PootyShoe starts to apply pressure on the team to finally give us an identity of the Masked Man. This episode, we learn just how important Brad and monetization in video games is. Brad tries to get the Masked Man to promote the casino he's been trying to release in an attempt to increase profits. Poppy and the rest of the team insult him and this idea, which causes Brad to leave and take everything he had a part in getting with him, like David's new car that he bought with the profits of the nymph loot chest. Brad also makes everything in the in-game store free, which causes a giant mess in the game's economics. This early in the expansion is really bad news. While this is going on, CW and Ian are working on a backstory for the Masked Man. The one they end up going with adds an additional character, the White Knight, who is the masked man's son, and they set on a story that's pretty similar to Star Wars.
Like Star Wars.
It is a bit like Star Wars, yeah. I was hoping you would notice.
We also learn more about the testers this episode. They have a very cute relationship. They take advantage of the empty workplace and have an 80s movie-like montage dancing around the office. After realizing how vital Brad is, Poppy and David are forced to apologize and attempt to get Brad to undo the damage he caused. When they go to the office, they see Brad already in a meeting with Ian. Unknowingly to them, Ian set up a deal with Brad to use the casino as an unmasking location for the masked man. Brad gets what he wants, so he turns the prices back on and things go back to running smoothly. For now, at least. In the next episode, we get to meet Sue, the community manager who deals with all the player feedback. Gamers have a reputation of being a little toxic, so you would imagine Sue being a bit of a bummer, but instead she's extremely positive, which is just plain unsettling. She alerts the team of an upcoming Kotaku article about Mythic Quest having a Nazi problem. Obviously, Nazis are bad, so the team has to figure out a solution without compromising anyone's rights or ethics. Brad brings up the point that even though they are Nazis, they are paying customers.
We've never banned an entire group before. These are paying customers we're talking about.
Gross, Brad. Even for you.
Hey, I'm just saying we gotta be careful how we respond.
So him and Brittlesby form an ethics community to try to figure out a humane way to deal with the Nazis, which involves a NCAA March Madness tournament of hate groups. My favorite little Easter egg of this scene is if you look closely, the Nazis are going against the Patriot fans in the finals. Go Jets, baby! While this is going on, Poppy is trying to launch her new chat feature.
Dinner party.
Poppy's plan is to use this new feature to form a peaceful protest against the Nazis. She invites everyone using a live stream that's super cringy, and Ian kind of laughs along with us as Poppy makes a fool of herself. Finally, Ian's plan to deal with the Nazis is to embrace them by adding a Hail Hitler salute emote and an SS patches. All of this makes Sue go crazy and you can't help but feel bad for her. Thousands of people show up to Poppy's peaceful protest and things are looking to be a success. The Nazis heard of the protest and decided to use Dinner Party to form their own raid group. In a scene that's reminiscent to a George R.R. Martin novel, it's a total bloodbath and they slaughter the entire group. Poppy feels defeated after what seems to be a failure of the launch of her new feature and retreats to her office. When Ian comes to visit her, she is ready to end it, until he lets her know what he was able to do thanks to her genius idea. She was able to do what he was not able to. Draw them out. Now instead of banning a group of 400, they have 4,000 accounts that they can put in an echo server all to themselves. Next episode, Pooty decides that he's done playing Mythic Quest. In need of another streamer to promote their game, Ian, David, Poppy, and Dana attend a gaming convention. Here, Poppy is introduced to Dan Williams, played by the legendary voice actor John DiMaggio. Dan works at a rival game company and tells Poppy he is a big fan and even offers her a job. After not having much success with their other previous candidates, they seem to have missed the perfect streamer right beneath their nose, the tester Dana. We've seen in previous episodes that she not only works at MQ but loves the game. She has a real passion for it. This episode we get to really see that passion on display. They see she is able to garner quite a crowd playing the game at the con, but it's not until after they see her give an inspirational speech to a group of inspiring women coders that it dawns on them that they need to make Dana the new streamer. Episode 5 is probably my favorite episode of the series. It's a standalone episode that has nothing to do with the cast that we know and love at all. It guest stars Jake Johnson and Kristen Milioti as Doc and Bean. This episode tells their love story and how it's connected to the game they created, Dark Quiet Death. As it goes from hit success to bargain bin, their relationship also mirrors this. I'll probably do a video essay later on about this episode just because I just really love how powerful this love story is and I really enjoy this episode. In episode 6, we learn about prescription bagels and we find out the masked man is acting up. He is handing out thousands of dollars worth of loot every minute. The only way to stop him from doing this is to hit him. So while David is busy attacking the masked man, Poppy is busy trying to figure out a solution. First up is to distract Ian so he doesn't find out about the mistake. She does this by attacking his insecurities. She brings up Paul, a coder who makes Ian feel short. The pettiness Ian shows in this episode is just hilarious. We also get a look at Dana's new replacement in the testing room. Now that she's the streamer and is working with Brad, someone else needs to do the testing. And it just so happens to be an obnoxious slob that disrespects Rachel almost immediately. Meanwhile, Poppy decides to take a tour of Cold Alliance Games, the company that offered her a job. She sees a much more professional work environment here, and it causes her to lean more towards leaving MQ. Before the episode ends, we find out the masked man has been hacked. Ian also sends that big bitch to the basement. The next episode continues the story of the masked man being hacked. In the opening scene, they kind of poke fun at how many big corporations have been hacked and nothing came of it. This is another episode that I really enjoyed. Maybe the best MQ related episode. Poppy is just simply losing her mind, just not feeling appreciated at all. She ends up accepting the offer. This makes her stop caring and totally changes her personality for a while. I love this Poppy, she is so fun.
I'm banking on the fact that this guy probably has a massive ego. Like a big enough ego to where he would agree to do something as stupid as this in the first place.
And he doesn't even see the irony of what he just said. It's fucking wild.
We get some more of Wild D this episode. That's the streamer named Dana went with, and in the beginning she's struggling, super cringy. After some advice from Rachel, she starts to bring more of herself out and starts to get a large following though. Ian ends up challenging the hacker via live stream to fight. Well, in the game. It's pretty hilarious. He does this without telling anyone. They actually think he's gonna try to apologize, but instead he challenges his cyber criminal to a fight. The best part about this is Ian absolutely sucks at the game. After an epic training session with Poppy and going through about 100 controllers, Ian is ready to face his challenger, or the person he challenged. The training session is so cute too. Dana is narrating to her stream, Poppy and Ian are having a mystical fight, and they even sync the sword sounds to the music. It's so sick. The day of the duel arrives. Using a special white knight skin Poppy designed with his face and everything, Ian and the masked men battle it out. Ian easily takes round 1, which makes the hacker start accessing the entire wheel of spells, raining fire upon Ian, dropping his health down to almost 0. About to be embarrassed in front of millions, Ian takes this moment to strip down, receiving a nude optimization health bonus. And he challenges the masked man to one last vanilla fight, the truest form of combat. The hacker accepts and drops down to his loincloth. After the two characters trade blows, Ian is able to come out victorious. While they were fighting, they were also tracking the hacker and they accessed his webcam. The hacker's identity is revealed to be Pooty Shoe.
Oh, I hate Pooty Shoe.
Yeah, he's a real piece of shit.
Before the episode ends, it shows Poppy getting a text from Dan Williams. She clearly is having a change of heart and she loves it here, but was just upset, and that's why she accepted that job offer. The next episode, we see the ramifications of this. Ian asks Poppy to go with him for a special errand. This makes her feel a little bit more appreciated and is second guessing her decision. She calls Dan Williams and leaves a voicemail saying she's changed her mind and will be staying at MQ. They make it to a diner where Ian tells Poppy to stay in the car while he goes in. He doesn't let Poppy know, but he is meeting with Pooty Shoe, who is actually his son. Their meeting doesn't go well and it ends with Pooty walking out in anger. When they were talking, his ex-wife sees Poppy in the car and thinks it's Ian's new fling. She fills her in on everything. This makes Poppy think she is nothing more than an emotional support animal for Ian. So she calls Dan back and leaves yet another voicemail saying she actually does want the job. When Ian leaves the diner, she confronts him and finally blew up like we all knew was gonna happen. She was just holding everything in for too long. She informs Ian she will be working for their competitor before heading back to the office. When they arrive, Dan finally calls Poppy back and lets her know that she isn't going to be needed anymore, which is totally understandable after her flip-flopping so much. Ian overhears this conversation and the power is now back to him. While this was going on, Rachel and Dana went on a date. And if it weren't for Joe, who I can't believe I didn't mention before until right now, they'd probably have their first kiss.
I'm not a narc. I'm David Brittleby's motherfucking assistant. Now move!
When they return, Wild D's chat is full of people spamming that she works at MQ. The internet somehow found out that she is an in-house streamer. Which brings us to the season finale. It opens with Poppy drawing bars on her office windows when Ian enters to tell Poppy that she needs to start working on his new blood ocean. He really has no idea what it is beyond the name and is putting it all on Poppy. David calls corporate with intent to help his employees get overtime pay and benefits, but ends up getting fired. David Hornsby is such an underrated actor. He nails every scene he's in. All of the actors give great performances in this show, but his definitely stands out in my opinion. You would think with everything going on, Ian would be doing something to help this situation, but he's busy cutting himself by the ocean. Creative people are usually a bit off, and Ian definitely is. Doing this gives him a revelation. Blood ocean is going to be a disease. After a brief stint in the hospital, Ian goes to visit Poppy to tell her the news. She gets upset with Ian again and tells him everything that's been going on, David being fired, and compares the game to how he messed up his son. Ian takes that pretty hard. She instantly regrets saying it, but she isn't wrong. Ian leaves Poppy's apartment upset and has some self-realizing to do. He looks through his phone and sees all the texts he missed, and we see some weakness in Ian for the first time all season. The next morning, Poppy enters the office to see Brittlesby back with ice cream machine and everybody is celebrating. David lets her know that Ian called Montreal and fixed everything, probably by threatening his job. Poppy goes inside Ian's office and shows him the blood ocean design that she stayed up all night to work on. She tells Ian that she's ready to accept her role. This is when Ian suggests a slight tweak. He wants her to be the co-creative director, and after some slight hesitation, she accepts. This would be where season 1 ended, but they also have a couple specials that they released. The first one is a quarantine episode that shows how the gang handled being quarantined. This was released last year when just about everyone was working from home, and I absolutely just love this episode. It gives us a much closer look at who some of the characters are. We see a much more depressed Poppy in the beginning of the episode. She's trying to hide it through her work, and Ian calls her late one night to check in, and she has her cam covered and almost refuses to uncover it. This worries Ian, and as Poppy is breaking down crying to him, he surprises her at the apartment door. The two of them embrace, and this was just like a really touching scene. I don't think they're hinting at a relationship between the two, just more of a close friendship. The quarantine episode is definitely worth a watch. Not many shows were able to capture the feelings that we felt during this quarantine like Mythic Quest did. Finally, we have the latest episode that was released last month, Everlight. Everlight is the annual party in the game that they celebrate in the office as well. Everyone dresses in cosplay and the office is decorated like the game. They plan to hold a LARP fighting tournament to find a new champion. Last year, David was the champion, and we find out that Ian rigs the tournament every year to boost morale. He wants a true underdog story, so he convinces Poppy that she can't compete. She thinks that he's just a wuss, but Ian embarrasses her immediately. I'm already loving their new dynamic. Their plan is to let Dana, the new tester, win, but this might be harder than they expected. After David forfeits due to his partner Joe's aggressive behavior, they're forced to ask Brad for his help. The only way he agrees to participate is if he wins, they can never celebrate again. After a valiant effort from our testers, Brad comes out victorious. It looks like all hope is gone when Ian and Poppy realize they can participate in the tournament as well. The three of them face off. As Brad shoots the first arrow, the world around them changes. They are transported to the world of Mythic Quest. We can really see that season 2 budget here. This scene is just so cool. You can tell everyone had a blast. Ian and Poppy are about to defeat Brad when the darkness completely takes him over. This turns the tide of battle in his favor. Ian makes a break towards the fabled sword to lift the darkness. With the help of a fireball from Poppy, Ian is able to get the sword and win the tournament. This episode definitely has me excited for season 2. I can't wait to see what they have planned. Hopefully, now that you're all caught up, you will watch along with me. Thank you so much for watching. Laters on the Minjay.
Smoking fags and flicking ash into empty beer cans. And